Hello and welcome to On Tour with Sport24. I'm Rob Adcock and this is Sport24's very own pocket guide to what makes a sporting city. In each episode, we're going to bring you a real flavour of a city's sports and culture, find out what the locals recommend and get the inside scoop of what you should experience when you visit. It's what Sport24 is all about. It's a sports channel that connects onboard passengers to those unmissable live sporting moments. So whether you're flying at 35,000 feet or you're relaxing on an ocean cruise, you can be watching the game live. It's the only way to travel. So buckle up and sit back. This is On Tour with Sport24.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Sport24, we'd like to welcome you to Chicago.
Now, this city is so special, I thought that the only way we could possibly do it justice is by splitting this podcast into two parts. I'm talking about the Windy City, Chicago. Episode 1, that is already available to watch. You can listen to that on your favourite podcast provider. It's also on YouTube right this very minute. That is where I speak to the legendary Chicago Bulls point guard, Randy Brown. So go and check that one out. Obviously not now. We've got something on at the moment, but do that a little bit later on. For episode 2, this one, we're going to delve even deeper into everything that this amazing city has got to offer in terms of sport. I'm talking about the Bears, the Cubs, the White Sox, and everything in between. To get some help to chat about this, I roped in the help of two people who know it very, very well. The first is the host of the CHGO and the All City Network, Kevin Kaduk. Kevin, how are you? Thanks very much for joining us.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me.
Also here with us, we have the sports anchor and reporter for WGN News, Josh Frydman. Josh, how are you doing?
Rob, I'm doing well. Typical Chicago fashion. Had to make it through some heavy traffic to get to a parking lot at the Chicago Bears facility to make this happen. But happy to be here and happy to talk about the great city of Chicago with you.
We'll talk more about the sport in a second, Josh. But first of all, let's talk about what it's like to live in as a city. What's it like as a place? It's a special place, isn't it?
It is, and I think one of the reasons too that Chicago gets overlooked is there's a lot of coastal bias. There's the New York, LA, especially with sports. There's a lot of focus on the East Coast teams, not only New York but Boston and Philadelphia. And so Chicago being in the Midwest, we get that second city vibe, which is literally the nickname of Chicago. And sometimes we're looked at as kind of the underdog city, even though we have everything from the lakeshore to the skyscrapers and I know we're going to get into some tips for the locals when they, come out here and they get to experience. But if you have a chance to, if you do take a cab or a ride share and you go down Lakeshore Drive and you're headed into the city southbound on Lakeshore Drive, it's one of the most spectacular views of the city landscape. And you have the skyscrapers and the lake to your left if you're coming south, so to your east. It's fantastic. And like I mentioned, the summers here, it's not too brutally hot, and you have that lake wind, so it's fantastic, and you have all the amenities here to have a great time and a great visit.
Right. Let's talk about the sport. We are a sporting podcast, although I appreciate I'm the one that will talk to you about Chicago all day long, despite the fact that you two live there. We're going to have to start first things first with the NFL. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. Josh, we're actually speaking to you. Do you want to explain exactly where you are?
Yeah, I'm actually on the premises of the Bears headquarters. It's up in Lake Forest, Illinois, which is about 30 miles north of the city center. But this is the headquarters where the Bears have all their training facilities, their practice fields, their meeting rooms. But as Kevin was alluded to earlier, the history of the Chicago Bears. I mean, Halas Hall is the name of their headquarters. George Halas founded the NFL, founded the Chicago Bears in 1920. So you're going back more than a century. It is the charter franchise in the NFL. And for all the history and all the Hall of Famers that the Bears have more than any other NFL team, what's been missing the last 40 years is a Super Bowl. You got to go back to the 1985 Chicago Bears, very famous team, the Super Bowl shuffle, Walter Payton, Jim McMahon, the Refrigerator Perry, Mike Singletary. You can go on and on about the incredible players on that team. But the problem with it is we only talk about that team because that's the last championship squad we've had, and we're gonna have the 40th anniversary this year of that team. So they've been to the Super Bowl one other time. That was in 2006, 2007. They lost to the Indianapolis Colts that year. But football is in the lifeblood of of Chicagoans. It is a true passion because we have two baseball teams, so you're kind of split on the allegiance there. There is one football team here, and occasionally you get a couple cheeseheads and Packer fans that find their way into the city from Wisconsin, but it is a true navy and orange town. The tailgates are incredible. Soldier Fields is a fantastic place to see a game. It's also the smallest venue in the NFL, so tickets are hard to come by. And one of the big talking points right now is, will the Bears move out of the city, move to the suburbs of Arlington Heights, and build a new stadium?
For people that are listening and not watching this podcast, I wish you could see the pain in Kevin's eyes when Josh was talking about it's been 40 years since a Super Bowl win. Is it
Yeah.
something that you feel on a daily basis as well, Kevin?
Absolutely. I was 6 years old when they last won the Super Bowl, and now I'm knocking on the door of 50 here in a couple of years. So it's kind of crazy. I remember my hearing my dad and uncles talk when they broke the streak in 1985. They were like, "Oh, it's been forever since they won an NFL title in 1963." And I mean, we're close to doubling that now. So it's been tough, and people are just so dedicated to the Bears here. It is just such a way of life. It's something that we plan our Sundays around. When people when babies are born, you get the Bears football, the Bears onesie, things like that. My daughters right now are 9 or 10. All they know is da Bears, da Bears, da Bears, and it's just a special thing. But it's a love that has gone so unrewarded because they just really can't put a winner together, and we at the slightest sign of optimism, we kind of go overboard. Last year, we really thought was the year, and then they come out and completely implode, lose 10 straight games after winning a game in London. And it's just, to me, it is painful, to answer your question.
One of the things I find really interesting about Chicago and the Bears in general is, from an outsider going into the city, you go to lots of different cities around the world, and you'll be aware that sport goes on, but it's so omnipresent when you walk around the city. Chicago Bears, it's on flags. People have got the stickers on the back of the bumpers. It's just everywhere, and I appreciate there'll be a lot of people listening to this that might want to go, but as you say, it can be quite difficult to get the tickets. But I remember the walk from like the centre near the Bean out to where they play. It's not that far. So if you do want to go and like kind of just experience a little bit, you can do tours as well, can't you, Josh, where you are now? Is that right?
Yeah, I would not, if you're going to stay in the city and spend a week in Chicago. Personally, I wouldn't recommend coming 30 miles north to Lake Forest.
Unless you're
But
really, really interested.
you could, yeah, the diehard Bears fans are going to be here for a while. But to your point, the Soldier Field location right off on the lake, right off Lakeshore Drive, it is, probably the most central of our Chicago arenas and stadiums. And you can get there if you're not living or staying in the city center. You can get there via public transit and just a short walk right off what they call the museum campus. One of the issues with driving is the traffic in and out because you are landlocked there against the lake. But it's a beautiful, sight line of all the skyscrapers. When you see a Monday Night Football game in Chicago, the first shot is always of the skyline and the blimp or the drone shot over Soldier Field. So in a way, it would be a shame if the Bears moved out of the city center, but there are a lot of positive reasons if they were to build a campus, if you will, with their own hotel and a museum and casino, all the things that we've kind of seen in vogue with other stadiums around not only the NFL, but a good example is in Chicago with Wrigleyville and the Ricketts family buying up properties all around Wrigley Fields and making that into its kind of own entertainment complex. So, and there is a train line right off of the Arlington Heights stop. It used to be the old Arlington Park race course. So that is convenient for people that are traveling in from the city to get out there if that's what happens with the Bear Stadium.
So let's say that someone was on the way to Chicago now and they were handed the magic ticket and they could go and see the Bears against any team in the NFL. Josh, you touched upon this a few minutes ago. You mentioned Cheeseheads. You mentioned the Green Bay Packers. Do you want to explain that reference and tell me where would be the dream ticket to see the Chicago Bears against?
Yeah, it's week 18, Bears, Packers, Soldier Fields, winner wins the division. And we've seen that play out not in the Bears' favor plenty of
I was going to
times
say, do you want them
before.
to see a Bears win, Josh?
I know. When the Bears are good, hopefully that happens. It's funny. The Bears had I think it was a 10-game losing streak to the Packers until the last week of the season last year, when it was a very poor year for the Bears. And like Kevin had said, we had all these expectations for rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams, and everything kind of flopped around him. So, but Bears Packers, that is the rivalry. Packers, Green Bay. In Green Bay, Wisconsin, they call themselves Title Town. A little arrogant, to be frank. So, they do have their Super Bowl trophies and championship trophies a little bit more than the Bears do in terms of Super Bowls. But, that is just it's the proximity. We're right by the Wisconsin state line. Here in Lake Forest, the headquarters, you can get to Wisconsin in like 20 minutes. So that is the team in Wisconsin. There's no football team in Milwaukee, for instance. So that's why the rivalry is so fierce. You have so many, just locals that they would rather see the Packers lose sometimes than the Bears win if it's a poor season, to see a team knock out the Packers because they've been in the playoffs a little bit more. But yeah, it's a very fun rivalry. So if you're going to go to one game, that's going to be probably the priciest ticket. But if you can get to a Bears-Packers game, that is an incredible experience.
Kevin, you mentioned you traveled to the UK to see the Bears. What was that like?
It was amazing. Tottenham Stadium was awesome, but to see how big the Bears are in Europe was just like something I really hadn't considered. We do have the biggest Chicago Bears podcast at CHGO, so I know that the international thing is there. But I mean, I'll just, for instance, like we're walking around London, and our podcast hosts, like people are just yelling at them from the stadium. I walk up to get a beer at the tailgate, and three brothers from Denmark recognize me, and I'm not a front-facing person like on our network. So, so like if the level of adoration for the Bears in Europe is to the point where they can recognize people from a podcast, that really shows you a lot. And it was just super cool. I mean, the entire stadium, it was Bears versus Jaguars. It was probably 80% Bears fans, and most of them were from Europe, and they came from all over. I mean, not just the UK, but really all over the place. And it was really cool to see and meet people from all over the world who love the Bears.
Needless to say, this podcast is a sporting podcast, so we're obviously going to talk about the Chicago Bulls, we'll talk about the Cubs, we'll talk about the White Sox in a second. But I can tell you now, gentlemen, that of all these podcasts that we've ever done, this has been the easiest one to do this next feature, okay? So it's called the Tourist Top 5, and it's where we get 5 things that you might not know about if you go in to a city. Do you know, let's say you're landing and you've done all your research, but just those little bit of tidbits on the plane always help, don't they? Do you know what I mean? So what I've managed to put together is the Tourist Top 5 for Chicago, but unfortunately, I could have done 20 things because it is that good. So are you ready? Are you okay for the Tourist Top 5? Feel free to tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong.
Okay.
As we do this. So this is the Tourist Top 5 for Chicago. I'm going to start with number 5. Now, usually we'll say like this is the 5th best thing, this is the 4th best thing, but I can't separate them all apart from number 1. So 5 to 2, all equally as good. Okay. So number 5 is if you're looking for that perfect view for social media, that perfect photograph where you can see a nice skyline, but also have a little drink while you're enjoying it, I'm going to say to you, London House. Is that okay,
Sure.
gentlemen? Because you don't look too impressed with that one, Kevin, but we'll come back to that.
I think it's great. They don't let me in there, but yeah.
Okay. So you've got a beautiful shot down the river. You can have a nice drink. You can enjoy. Imagine that sun is setting over the beautiful skyscrapers in Chicago, and the sun is just touching down. You've got the light bouncing off the glass skyscrapers next to you, and you're just enjoying that night before you really explore the city for the first time the next day. Tell me that's not a beautiful thing, Josh.
I mean, you're making me, all romantic inside about our great city. That's a fantastic description of it. I'll throw out Cindy's Rooftop, which is another one that's right there off Michigan Avenue. Has some great views and beverages, of course, too. So I think you're 1 for 1.
Number 4, I couldn't split these two places, okay? So these are, consider this 4A and 4B, okay? So 4A, Lou Mitchell's.
Mitchell's is great.
Lou Mitchell
Milk Duds
is how would you describe it best? I would describe it as a breakfast diner, which is traditionally Chicago. So as I've mentioned, my friend lives in Chicago and he's a very passionate person to live in Chicago. And as soon as we landed the next morning, he said, do not make any plans. We are going to this place. And we went and we had a fantastic breakfast. You walked in and it felt like you were in the proper traditional American diner. Great service, fantastic food, and you just it was one of those things where you just think to yourself, I am in Chicago. 4B, wild berries. Well known for its pancakes, right near the bean. So if you think to yourself, right, I'm going to get up early and get that perfect picture of the bean, but I want some food first. We went to Wild Berries, and the pancakes there were unreal. I was looking through my photographs before we started recording this podcast, and do you know when your mouth starts salivating when you see a photograph because you've remembered a breakfast? That's exactly what happened to me. So that is 4A and 4B, gentlemen, discuss.
I think we're learning you're a brunch guy.
Maybe. Kevin, that fair?
I think it's great. I'd go Lou Mitchell's over Wild Berries. I mean, that's the quintessential greasy spoon. It's like unchanged. I think that place opened in 1921. It's got a great marquee, so it's perfect for Instagram. And like you said, the food can't be beat.
Number 3, I appreciate that this might be triggering for some people, so this is a trigger warning. If you do get upset by this kind of thing, I apologize now. You might want to just turn your headphones down or just stop listening to the podcast for the next 30 seconds. But I'm going to tell you what I think is the greatest pizza outside of Italy, okay? Now, gentlemen, I know that you'll have an opinion on this because if you live in Chicago, you love a deep dish pizza. So just hold your initial thoughts until I've explained the situation, okay? So it is the second day of our trip to Chicago. We're walking through. We'd been to see the Blackhawks the night before. We'd probably had one too many sherbets, one too many drinks. And we thought to ourselves, we need something to eat, but we're going out for a nice meal later on, so we can't fill up too much. And we walked past a little place on our way into the Magic Mile, into the center of Chicago. The sun was shining. It was beautiful. The river, we just had a nice little walk along there. We saw Chicago in its best, blue sky, very, very windy, and we knew we were there. Then all of a sudden we see a little cafe to our left-hand side, and we think, right, this is perfect. We'll just nip in here, we'll have a sandwich or a slice of pizza, and we'll just carry on with our day. Little did we know that this would be the greatest pizza I would ever put into my mouth, okay? It's called Fantano's, and it's on South Michigan Avenue. You wouldn't expect it to be the greatest pizza place, but in my humble opinion, it was. And when I tell you that it was the most succulent, squidgy pizza with the perfect amount of tomato cheese topping, just thinking about it makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Josh, Kevin, tell me I'm right.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Rob. I've not had Fontano's pizza, so
Am
you
I
are
telling you about Chicago,
the tourist
Josh?
teaching me a spot I need. There are dozens and dozens of deep dish spots in Chicago. I'm glad you enjoyed deep dish because, yes, you're right. It is a little bit of a controversial word when it comes to food because I think it is a tourist. I wouldn't call it a trap, but I would say it is the tourist ideal of what Chicago pizza is. I grew up in the suburbs here. I grew up on deep dish, Lou Malnati's, Giordano's, the traditional ones. I enjoy it, but I can only have it about twice a year. It is very, very heavy. It's like cake. It is still delicious, but if you're a true Chicagoan, you talk about tavern style pizza, which is cracker crust, very thin, square pieces of this pizza, and that's how you kind of can differentiate between the tourists and the local Chicagoans. Not to say that deep dish doesn't hit the spot every now and then, but I would say the Chicago pizza scene in general is much more than deep dish. Though, if you're coming for the first time, I definitely want you to have a slice of deep dish, and now Fontano's is on the list.
Number 2 on the tourist top 5 is, again, the first time I went to Chicago was in 2015, right after the Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup for the first time. And I was walking around with my new wife, and I'm not really a big beer drinker. I'm more of a Pims and lemonade or a gin and tonic kind of man. And we walked past this one bar. We thought, do you know what? We're on our holidays, we're on our honeymoon. I'm going to sit down and have a little drink. And I went straight up to the bartender and said, what shall I have? And he says, how long have you been in Chicago? I said, just a matter of days. He said, I'm not going to let you order anything else other than this drink. And he poured a draft pint and he placed it in front of me. And that moment changed my life. That was a 3-1-2 beer. And now I appreciate people might listen to this and not drink. That's not a problem. But if you do, and you are in Chicago and you don't have a 3-1-2 beer, I don't know what to say to you.
3-1-2 is excellent. It comes from Goose Island, which is kind of one of the vanguards of the Chicago craft beer scene. I mean, it started up in the 1980s, and it's one of our biggest breweries. And it's a really accessible beer. I mean, if you're not a big beer drinker, it's kind of like a wheat ale, and it's great. And Goose Island has tons of different beers. They have a couple different tap rooms around the city, so I would definitely recommend if you like beer Goose Island is a place to go. But I mean, Chicago, we have no shortage of craft breweries as well too.
They also sell 312 and Green Line and other Goose Island at all the stadiums too. So
Right.
At United Center, at Soldier Fields, Wrigley, and Rates, you get to experience that if you don't want to go visit the brew pub.
So number 5 all the way down to number 2, featuring 4A and 4B, were all kind of interchangeable. They're all just as good as the other one. This one, though, I don't even want to hear any dissent. I don't want any disagreement because this is just fact, okay, Josh and Kevin. This is the greatest thing. If you only ever do one thing in Chicago, maybe you're flying in and you're just on a layover. If you've got 1 hour spare in Chicago and you don't do this one thing, I don't know where we're going to go with this podcast, but I'm telling you now, the number one best thing to do while you're in Chicago is head straight to a Garrett's popcorn and just get as much as the caramel Garrett's popcorn as you possibly can. Now, needless to say, this is in no way linked commercially to Garrett's, and there are other popcorn places available. However, if you are listening from Garrett's and you want to send me a big tub, I am very easily bought because it is the best thing that you can eat. To the point where another friend of mine went to Chicago a few weeks ago, and my mum is addicted to this Garrett's popcorn now. And to the point where she was bringing it back. It was like some kind of contraband that she had to bring back because it is the greatest thing ever, isn't it, Josh?
There's a reason why they have Garrett popcorn shops in the airports. I mean, it's for people like you, Rob.
But it's one of those things where unless you've been to Chicago, you would have no idea of its existence, Josh.
Yeah. Did you get the Chicago mix?
No. I just want the caramel, Josh.
No.
You got to get the cheese. Come on.
Yeah, you got it. You got to
come back.
It's called the Chicago mix for a reason, but and the caramel is great, but sometimes you want that saltiness and you want that cheese, and you get them in one bite together, and that is the quintessential bite, maybe of Chicago.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that one, Josh. But it's fair. You can have your opinion, but just for the purpose of the record, the caramel one is the only one that you need in your life. But I appreciate there are other options. So if you have been to Chicago, if you're planning a trip to Chicago, we would love to hear tips or hints that you might got. Also, love to see your pictures and videos. If you give us a little follow on Facebook, it's Sport24. We're on X as well and Instagram. Or you can use the hashtag MySport24 to get in touch. Now we've got to move on to arguably one of the most famous basketball teams in the world, the one where Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen co-made their name during the dominance of the 90s, the Chicago Bulls. Looking in from the outside, Kevin, it seems like there is a cult around the Chicago Bulls that will never end.
And it's the greatest team of all time. I mean, 6 NBA titles with the greatest athlete, greatest basketball player of all time, greatest winner of all time. The cultural force that Michael Jordan has become with Nike and Jumpman. I mean, just seeing, The Last Dance, what a phenomenon that was 5 years ago, coming out during the pandemic. I feel lucky. I know Josh probably feels the same, to have grown up during that and see, during my formative years. I mean, it's like growing up in New York, in the 20s and 30s and following Babe Ruth, probably even more so. So that's just a worldwide brand that will never really die because Michael Jordan was that big and that transformative of an athlete.
Josh, what do the Bulls mean to you?
Yeah, Kevin said it. The 90s were my childhood, and the team of the 90s, not just in the NBA but in all of sport, were the Chicago Bulls. And The Last Dance was great because not only the timing, we had no sports being played because of the pandemic, so it felt like a weekly sporting event to watch the 2 hours every week. But, for me, I was pretty young, so being able to kind of go back and see that through a lens, not as someone, now in their 30s, was awesome to relive those moments and also just, see things that had never been, publicized, as some of those the road trips and the behind the scenes footage of that 1997-98 team. But the Bulls, and you can go anywhere in the world, Rob, you know this, there is always a Bulls hat somewhere or a Michael Jordan jersey, more so than the Bears or any other team. And the Bulls, they still have the number one attendance in the NBA despite not being really relevant in terms of a playoff team for years now. And again, as I alluded to with the Bears living in the past, we kind of do that with the Bulls too, because we haven't had that championship. They haven't been to the finals since the Last Dance season. So, the Bulls, and a tidbit and a tip for your listeners, you can go and visit the Michael Jordan statue at United Center when the games are not even being played. You can go and you can walk into the atrium and take a picture with the statue. So that is recommended. Just the history there, and yeah, the Bulls are Chicago's team again. Basketball is such a part of the fabric of the city. Great players from the city have made it to great heights. Isaiah Thomas, Derrick Rose, and go on and on. So yeah, we need some more winners in Chicago is what it comes down to.
It's about the experience as well. If you are lucky enough to get tickets, and in my experience, I find it fairly accessible to get the tickets at the United Centre. When you walk in, it's the whole thing that comes with it. Can you just tell us about the music, the thing that happens just before tip off? Because that is iconic, isn't it? Kevin, do you want to tell us?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that people don't really know, like the modern stadium experience, really kind of started with the Chicago Bulls and their pre. Now you go to any basketball game and they dim the lights and there's a special song and there's lasers and whatever. That all started with Michael Jordan and I think a marketing executive named Steve Shanwald. So when you go to the Bulls, and the Bulls have they've maintained their um, their attendance, one because of the Michael Jordan effect, but two, like they just do a great job of the game day experience. Like I'm a bigger Blackhawks fan, but if I want my daughters to kind of be a little bit more into it, it's a Bulls game because there's timeouts and there's all different games and there's a blimp shaped like a bull flying around and all these different things. So in terms from a entertainment package, the Bulls is definitely up there. And even if you do go out there and spend a few more dollars, like you're going to be entertained, even if the Bulls lose.
What kind of relationship do the Bulls have with the local residents, Josh? Because when sometimes when you've got something that's so globally recognised, like as a sporting brand, they can sometimes, in some cases, lose kind of the grassroots. I
Mm.
never got that feeling with the Bulls.
Yeah, I think like all our sports teams, I think there's a very, local parochial tie to the team. Like we want to have that ownership. Like this is my team. I'm from this city, and I think Chicago is one of those strong, sports cities that really feels that way. And at the same time, I think not only understand but embrace the global brand that is the Bulls. And I think it's fun to go to a Bulls game and see people from all over the world that are clearly there for the first time. You can just tell that they're there and they're taking pictures of everything, and maybe they're asking questions to the locals and experiencing things for the first time. So that's it's very special. It's on the west side of Chicago. Again, the basketball history in our city. And Michael Jordan, you can ask anybody in the world who Michael Jordan is, they're going to know what team he played for. They're going to know it's the Bulls.
Kevin, the other big sporting team that play at the United Centre are, of course,
The Blackhawks.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're all right, aren't they? They're not doing too bad.
Well, the last 10 years have been a little lean, but before that, they had a mini dynasty going with 3 cups in 6 seasons, and they go back to the 20s. I think that is their 100th anniversary coming up, Josh. I think.
I think so. Yeah, one of the
Yeah,
original 6 teams.
one of the original 6 teams. People love the kind of the toughness and the grit, and they had a 4 or 5 Hall of Fame level players going out and going deep into the playoffs every spring, and it became a thing. And it the casual fans really aren't as around as much anymore because they haven't been winning. But when they do, it's like everybody in town has a Blackhawks jersey. You can see some of the parades when they won the cups. 2 or 3 million people on the street or whatever it was. It's a big thing.
While we are talking about the Blackhawks, I've been lucky enough to experience a game, and I picked up a piece of merchandise, Josh. Now, this is something that UK listeners and people that aren't familiar with North American sports too much might not be aware of one of these. But can I just show you my purchase?
Oh,
Impressive.
I appreciate that people that listen to this are not watching it. This is what is known as a knapsack. Is that right, Kevin? Is that what they're called?
Is that what it was? I couldn't quite tell
Yeah.
from that.
It is
Yeah.
like a giant sleeping bag, but because the reason why I'm talking about this is the fact because Chicago can be very, very, very cold. So this is like a
Right.
giant sleeping bag that you can walk around in. Are you aware of these?
how,
Or am I
how does
just
how does that play in the UK?
when I go to the football, it is the thing that keeps me warm. So that's the best thing about it.
and I can see why you might need that at the Blackhawks game. Obviously, it's a winter sport with an indoor stadium with ice, so it does get a little chilly there. But yeah, Blackhawk games are a blast, and when they win, When they score a goal, Chelsea Daggers, the song, the entire arena's rocking. And yeah, that heyday from 2010 to 2015 when they won the 3 Stanley Cups, just an incredible time because it was the diehards, but a lot of people did jump on the bandwagon. But people were talking about the Blackhawks day to day, and that doesn't always happen when you're in a way, a little bit of a second fiddle team to the Bulls, who they share the arena to, and obviously the Bears and the baseball teams too.
We'll talk about the baseball teams in a second. I want to get one local kind of bit of knowledge from you both before you go. I know we haven't got you for too much longer, so thank you for all your time so far. But let's have a quick chat about some of the other sports as well then. You mentioned the baseball teams. There are two big baseball teams, Kevin.
Yeah, the Cubs and the White Sox. Cubs on the north side, bit more of a draw, particularly nationally and internationally. White Sox are a little bit more of a neighborhood team from the south side. Both teams have not been successful historically. They've both won one World Series apiece in the last 100 and some years. But the devotion of both sides of town is up there. And like I said, it's a huge rivalry. My wife's family, like they really get into it. Like you're either a Cubs fan or a Sox fan. Her uncle was a priest and married, was the officiant for one of her cousins who was a Cubs fan, marrying a Cubs fan. And after the ceremony, he took off his vestments and he had a White Sox jersey underneath. So that's kind of the depths of how it goes.
Wrigley Field is like one of those iconic sporting stadiums as well, isn't it, Josh?
It is second oldest major league ballpark behind Fenway Park. You're going back to the 19 teens with Wrigley 1914, and the true Chicago Wrigley Field experience is to go sit in the bleachers. And if you've never been to Wrigley, go get a bleacher ticket. You'll be part of the bleacher bums. You go get a Chicago style hot dog, an old style beer, and that is on a perfect Friday afternoon in the summer. There's nothing honestly better to do in the city than that, in my experience. And both Wrigley Field and now what's called Rate Fields, where the White Sox play, are extremely accessible. You can actually take the Red Line, one of the CTA trains, from Wrigley straight to the White Sox Park, and you don't have to get on any other train or any other public transit. So, it's Wrigleyville itself is also just like this incredible neighborhood vibe with awesome pubs, awesome. It's become a little bit more, I would say, gentrified, and there's a little bit more of a upscale feel to some of the restaurants now, but you still can go into that bar from 50, 60 years ago, and where more of the locals are hanging out and get that feeling. But you can spend an entire day at the game and around the stadium just by spending the afternoon in Wrigleyville. So it's an awesome experience for anyone that has not been to Chicago and wants to go to a baseball game. I as a Cubs fan, I'm a little biased. I would say Wrigley over the Rate.
Right, I've got two final things I just want to chat to you about. The first one is whenever we do this podcast, we try and get an understanding of how we can blend in, how we can speak like a local. So I'll start with you, Kevin. Is there one local phrase or word that if we say it, people from Chicago will be like, he's not a tourist, he lives here, basically?
So I don't know if I'm going to take this one from Josh, but the whole thing, it's kind of a Midwestern thing, but it's to say "ope," and it's kind of like if you drop something, you say "oh," if you bump into someone, you say "oh." That's probably the thing you can do. I don't know. It's just kind of I don't know how it happens, but like kids do it when they're like 3 years old, and it's just something that's ingrained.
Josh, is that fair, or do you want to chuck another one in?
That's a good one. I would add, we say pop instead of soda. If you're talking about getting a soft drink. Also, I mentioned the Chicago style hot dogs. It is a faux pas to order ketchup on your hot dog. So if you order ketchup, at least publicly, we kind of know you're an outsider. You're not here. I personally do like it, and I try not to order in front of people, but you don't want to do it in public. Some places will not even let you order ketchup on that hot dog.
It's not an ingredient on a Chicago style hot dog for sure.
I love the idea of you like ordering a hot dog and then turning around to use like the squirter thing so no one can see you putting the tomato ketchup.
There's hot dog places that don't stock ketchup. I mean,
Really?
there's a couple of them in the city that were like, if you have ketchup, you ask for ketchup, they're like, we don't have it.
Okay,
Yep.
fair dues. And the final thing I need is your hidden gem, please. Somewhere in your opinion that you've got to visit, but you don't even know about if you lived in Chicago. Where would that be for both of you?
Wow. I don't know how hidden this is anymore because I think that so many people have talked about it, but I'll give you two. You mentioned all the food. When you're in the city, you have to take the architecture tour down the Chicago River. It is a must. It is probably highly recommended from people, but I think it's something that lives up to the hype, especially on a summer day. You're on a boat with fantastic guides. They will give you the entire history of the city, and the architecture here is really second to none. And you get to experience it on the Chicago River. That to me is a quintessential must do. And then there's so many amazing walking trails, and I live near one called the 606, which is it's a little bit west of the main highway, and it's in the Wicker Park, Bucktown area. It's about a 2-mile walking trail, biking trail, just a really cool kind of like local scene that you get to, it goes over a lot of streets and buildings, so you get kind of that overpass feeling as well, and you can stop off and go to a bunch of different cafes and restaurants if you want to. So I'll give you those two as a kind of must to do if you can in Chicago.
I would say definitely just be outside. The lakefront trail is great. We've got a great divvy bike program where you can get either a manual bike or an e-bike, and you can get out on the lakefront trail. I think it's 18 miles of unfettered lakefront access, which is one of the things I think sets Chicago apart. So if you're a runner or a biker, lakefront trail for sure. For a food thing, something that doesn't get out a lot but is a uniquely Chicago thing is called the Jibarito sandwich. It was made by Chicago's Puerto Rican community, which is rather sizable. It's basically fried plantains instead of bread, and then you can kind of fill it with whatever you want. But I usually go with steak. It's got tomatoes, lettuce, a sauce, which I'm not exactly sure what it is.
Never asked.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of communities that have it. My favorite place is on Fullerton. It's Jibaritos something or other. I don't know.
I think it's Jibaritos y Mas.
He's
It's
my yeah.
yeah.
And then you can go to Pilsen too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seconding that from Kevin. That's a great call.
Okay. And also, don't forget, if you do that cycle and you get the bike ride, you do the 18 miles, what you could do is if your bike's got one of the little baskets on the front, massive load of Garrett's caramel popcorn, just have a couple as you go. Can't go wrong, can you? Am I right, Josh?
You can tell why we walk so much in Chicago, or need to walk. You got popcorn, hot dogs, and pizza and beer.
To be fair, that is pretty much all you need. That is it from Chicago for this episode. Don't forget, if you're traveling soon, make sure you check out Sport24's live schedule. That is at sports24live.com. That will make sure that you don't miss any of the biggest sporting events live in the air or at sea. Sport24 really does have it all. All it leaves me to do is say a huge thank you to my guests Kevin Kaduk and Josh Frydman for brilliantly guiding us around the city. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast, though. You can hear about some of the other sporting cities that we've already done. Already there, waiting for you to listen to, is Las Vegas, Paris, Milan, Sydney. We're going to be back soon, though, exploring some other destinations around the globe. But for me, Rob Adcock, and the On Tour with Sport 24 gang, it's goodbye. Until next time, safe travels.